Good morning, everybody. Today is, in fact, the last day of our lectures, presentations by different distinguished speakers that we have been listening to with the help of Bhaktivedanta Research Center. This course is on Western philosophy, and we had the opportunity of listening to some very good lectures on different aspects of Western philosophy for last 4 days. So let us welcome Professor C. A. Tomy this morning. Professor Tomy is a professor of philosophy at Hyderabad Central University, and he has worked extensively on philosophy of mind, philosophy of language, epistemology, etc. And he has a very good number of publications to his credit, published in different anthologies and professional journals. So welcome, Professor Tomy, to our course. And over to you now, Professor Tomy.
Okay, thank you, Professor Nagel. So I would like to, at the outset, I would like to thank Professor Nagel as well as Defective and the Research Center for giving me this opportunity. So today I will be talking on topic on consciousness, particularly on Nagel's understanding of what it is like to be, what it is like rather than what it is like to be. Okay, and here this is based on Nagel's famous articles published in 1974 in Philosophical Review. It is centrally based on that. In a certain sense, you can say it is basically a summary of that article and the central argument that I want to present here. So the background of this article is basically various kinds of reductive analysis of the mind, particularly the the idea that consciousness is nothing over and above brain processes. Okay, this kind of reductive analysis is not helpful because it leaves something very important or some important aspect of consciousness or essential characteristics of consciousness is being revealed. So the importance of this article, I think it reveals to us the essential nature of consciousness. So that bit is very important. So I think it will give us some insight into the nature of consciousness. So with this, I will just give my presentation. I have got a presentation, so I will share it. So
I think there is something called share screen at the bottom of your.
share screen is there, a screen share is there, but there is also a tab sharing is there, na? Okay, let me see. Can you see it
Yeah,
right now?
yeah. Fine.
All right. So this is basically I'm speaking on Nagel's understanding of what it is like. And one important thing about Nagel is that Nagel is a realist, and he realism. You know that basically, of course, you had. I think you had a couple of lectures on realism. So here, the important thing is that it is not only the physical facts that are real according to him, even the mental phenomena is real. So this is the kind of position that he starts, and then he is speaking about. He wants to speak about that mental phenomena is real, what it's the meaning of having a mental phenomena or subjective experience, as he calls, and then he wants to say why this mental physical reduction or reduction of mental to the physical doesn't work. So the outline of this would be, first I will be speaking about Nagel's realism, and then different, particularly realism of the subjective, that is what our interest is. And then we talk about different kinds of facts that Nagel is granting, and finally the general difficulty of psychophysical reductionism. So let us move on to Nagel's realism. And so here we know that generally speaking what realism is, it is a view that there are things whose existence is independent of being perceived or conceived. So they have got a whatever is real, we consider as real, they have got an existence independent of a subjective point of view, or from a for being perceived by a subject. Now, there are many things whose exact nature perhaps we cannot conceive or even perceive. But this inability, it is, we are speaking from our point of view, that is human point of view, and this human inability to conceive or perceive such things does not mean that they do not exist. Now, uh, so therefore, according to him, what we can say is that knowability in any sense is not a condition for the existence of facts. So, with reference to this notion of knowability, we can think about three possibilities of mind independent truths or facts. Now, some of these mind independent truths are already known to us. That's the first possibility. And the second is some are not known but yet knowable. And the third category, we can say it is inaccessible or unknowable. So that is with reference to us that we are speaking. Speaking of this categorization is with reference to us. Now, this that in order to know at all a certain kind of a facts, Nagel says what is required for us to know facts. There must be some concepts, requisite concepts necessary to comprehend them, must be with us. Only then we can know various kinds of facts. Now, now there are, when we are going to speak about the known facts, of course, certainly we possess concepts. That is why we know them. And what about the knowable facts? They are either of either we possess concepts for them, or at least if we don't possess, we can at least develop them. Now, there are unknowable facts, and with reference to these facts, Nagel says human would never possess the required concepts for their comprehension. So the important thing that he wants to speak about is there are facts which are unknowable to human beings. So, but the unknowability of a fact by human does not mean that such a fact does not exist. For unknowable facts, we certainly do not possess the requisite concept that enable us to know the exact nature. And since we don't have the concepts, we can also express them in our language. Though we lack concepts, still Nagel believes that we can be compelled to recognize the existence of such facts. We'll be forced to accept that there are facts that we cannot know. So one of the consequences of Nagel's realism is the view that there are humanly inaccessible facts. So, however, the inaccessibility of these kinds of facts does not make realism, according to Nagel, incoherent. Now, so within Nagel's realism, we can say that Nagel is committed to the view that both physical facts and also consciousness or subjective experiences exist. We can also grant, maybe he is also granting certain truths like mathematical or abstract entities or abstract truths are also granted by him. But here we are mostly concerned with physical facts and what we may call mental facts or consciousness. So we humans have access to our own conscious experience, and so we know that consciousness is there, at least in our own case. But we are not the only beings that have consciousness. Many other organisms have conscious experience. Uh, so so some unknown and unknowable subjective experiences belong to organisms of the other species, like bats or hypothetical creatures like Martians or any other organisms that we can think of. So Nagel says conscious experience occurs in countless forms unimaginable to us on other planets or another solar system throughout the universe. So he is basically saying that there are not only human form of consciousness, that there are different forms of consciousness, and they are scattered all throughout the universe. Now, before proceeding further, let us try to understand what he means by conscious experience. For Nagel, that an organism has conscious experience means that there is something it is like to be that organism, or something it is like to be for the organism. So that is what he means in a substance whenever we speak about consciousness. So there is something, for example, when we are going to speak about an experience, say experience of seeing a color, say green, there is something it is like to see that color, and that is of course different from the physical description of the color, maybe from a scientific point of view. So that can be known only by the people who experience it, what it is like to see a color. What it is like to be a human would be a sum total of the kind of experiences that human can undergo. Now, one important character, or what we may call as the essential character of this experience, or of what it is like to be, is that it is deeply connected to a single point of view. So this point of view, when we are going to speak about the point of view, what he has in mind is a human point of view, and we can access or speak of the conscious spirit. We cannot speak of the conscious experience independent of the point of view. Now, the point of view, what we have to remember, the point of view he often speaks of as a type. That means human point of view is a type, bat's point of view is a different type, or hypothetical Martian's point of view would be a different type. So we can speak about each species, that there is a type, there is a point of view associated with this. So point of view, therefore, is not an individual point of view, but a species specific point of view, and a species specific point of view is available to all the individual belonging to that species. Now, arguments, there are certain arguments for the existence of conscious experience in other organisms, and let us see what is Nagel's argument. We know, as we have already spoken, we know that we humans know the existence and nature uh, of our experiences because we have access to conscious experience, and we know them because we also possess the requisite concept to know them, and we also express them in our language. So we know that we have conscious experience. But the question is, how can we grant existence to those experiences in other organisms whose exact nature we cannot conceive? For example, he says if Martians have experiences or bats have experiences, we cannot know them because we do not have the exact nature. So, how to grant existence to such consciousness or subjective experiences? Now, he says, let us suppose bats and Martians as intelligent as human beings. So, Martian would fail to conceive what it is like to be human because the structure of their minds would not make it, structure of their mind would make it impossible for them to know what it is like to be human. So we know that we have a conscious experience. Now, if Martians or bats or some other organisms, from their point of view, try to know what it is like to be a human, they would not be in a position to know it because they don't have these kinds of experiences, and they also do not have the kind of concepts that is required to know what it is like to be a human. Now, based on their inability to know, if Martians were to conclude there is nothing it is like to be humans, then they would be mistaken. Because they would be mistaken, we can say that they would be mistaken because we have, or we know that we have got conscious experience. So if they make that conclusion, we can know that they are completely mistaken. So, so that is because, as we said, we know that there is something it is like to be humans, and we also possess the vocabulary to describe it. And it can only be understandable, or what it is like to be a human being can be understandable only by creatures like us. So Martians, being different from us, cannot know what it is like to be humans. Now, now the same way, now this is the case of the Martians, that we can say if they are drawing this conclusion, they are drawn. The same way, if we are going to draw certain conclusion about the Martians, again we will be mistaken. So analogous to Martian, we are not in a position to know what the subjective character of what it is like to be Martians, since we lack the requisite concepts and vocabulary. So therefore, we cannot know what it is like to be a Martian, and we cannot also express what it is like to be a Martian because we don't have the vocabulary for that. But our limitation to know or describe what it is like to be a bat or a Martian does not entail that there is nothing it is like to be a bat or a Martian. So, in the same way, they would be mistaken if they say there is nothing it is like to be a bat. So, there is nothing it is like to be a human. In the same way, we would be mistaken if we say there is nothing it is like to be a bat or a Martian. So, arguments establish two things, try to establish. First is humans cannot know what it is like to be a non-human organism. Second, a non or non second thing is non-human organisms to have conscious experience. Now, the first claim or the first conclusion is based on the premise: to know something, the knowing subject must possess the requisite concepts. But we human beings do not have requisite concepts, so there are certain organisms whose experiences we humans cannot know. Now, the question we can ask is that does Nagel succeed in establishing that non-human organisms have conscious experience? So, in other words, did the above argument establish that the non-human organisms have conscious experience? Now, so if Nagel wants to establish the claim that non-human organisms have conscious experience, he must rely on an analogical arguments. And we can say that Nagel may have such an argument in his mind when he is speaking about this. Nagel assumes that, like humans, Martians are also complex organisms. And as complex organisms, humans have conscious experience. Therefore, as complex organisms, Martians too have conscious experience. So this would be the kind of an argument. This is basically an analogical argument. We being conscious experience, we being conscious beings have, or complex organisms have conscious experiences. So other complex organisms with their sophisticated behavior would also have a conscious experience. That is what the argument would be like. But this is not anything like a deductive argument. We know that. We know that the conclusion of analogical argument is not as certain as the kind of conclusions we derive in deductive arguments. So now, now we can, when we are going to speak about Nagel's realism of the subjective experience, so what way we can, the question here is that what way we can speak about realism, because normally when we are going to speak about realism, we understand the things that are real are there independent of being perceived or independent of consciousness and so on. So we can talk when we are going to talk about realism of subjective experiences. We can generally speak of four ways we can speak about realism of the conscious experience. First sense, we can say realism understood from an absolute point of view. And what would be realism understood from an absolute point of view? Here we can say all that exist independently of any mind, either individual mind or a finite or a divine and transcendental mind. So that would be the realism from an absolute point of view. This suppose can we apply this realism to the subjective experiences. Suppose if we are applying this, then it would mean that subjective experiences have their being independent of any mind. Now we know that this interpretation is not a tenable one. Um, Realism in this absolute sense, the major problem with this is that realism in this sense would rob subjective experiences of their very subjectivity. So then nothing of subjectivity would remain. So this leads us to a sort of contradiction because it is generally held that subjective experiences existence consists in their being perceived or and they do not have a mind independent existence, or in Nagel's point of view they are based upon a point of view. So Nagel's realism of subjective experiences cannot be understood as a commitment to this kind of an obviously false doctrine. Now the second sense of realism of the subjective experience, apart from the absolute way, there are relativist ways of reading realism. Now, the three versions of the realism that we are going to speak of from a relativist point of view, in a certain sense, they are variations of one and the same, variations of the same relativist point of view. So let us see the second sense, which is a relativist reading. So the experience belonging to a type of subject, say a human subject. So here we are going to differentiate on the basis of the kind of subject, so type of subject. From a human point of view, human experiences cannot, no human experiences can occur independent of the human mind. But when we are speaking about other beings, for example, however, there are non-human species like bats that have subjective experiences. Of course, those subjective experiences have their being independent of the human mind. So the experiences of the non-species do not depend upon the human mind. Hence, from the human point of view, the experience of the other species are real. They are independent of the human mind. So this is a second sense that we can speak about realism. And the third sense is very closely related to that from an individual subject. So there we are speaking about from a species point of view. Now we are speaking from an individual's point of view. From an individual's point of view, the other subjects have experiences irrespective of the species. The experience of the other subjects are not dependent upon their being perceived by the individual subjects. So if I'm speaking about other human beings also have conscious experiences. They are not dependent upon my individual point of view. So that way they are also real. So the experience of the other subjects are mind independent and real in a relative sense. Now, there is also a fourth sense we speak of realism of the subjective experience. Now, this is from the point of view of the experiencing subject, himself or herself. Though one's own experience cannot occur without being perceived, they do not have a mind independent existence. The perceiving object would not consider them as unreal. That is to say, my experiences do not have a being independent of my being perceived or being experienced. Yet, I do not consider them as unreal. The subject that undergoes the experience cannot deny their occurrence. So we can say they are experientially real. For each subject, its subjective experiences are real in this sense. So for each subject, the subjective experiences are real in the sense that they are experientially real. Now, what is the sense of Nagel's realism? When Nagel speaks of realism of the subjective experience, he speaks of them in a relative sense, not from an absolute sense. When he speaks of the type of subjective experience, he speaks of it with reference to a species. And when he speaks of reality of singular or token experiences, he speaks of them in relation to an individual subject. So both these ways, so from the point of view of the individual subject as well as from the point of view of species, he is speaking, but his emphasis is primarily on the species specific point of view. Now, on the basis of these different kinds of uh, realism that we have spoken of, we can also speak about different kinds of facts, because only when we are going to speak about facts from an absolute point of view and facts from a relative point of view, these are the two fundamental point of view that we can speak of. So there are two kinds of facts. So this division is based upon how facts are accessed. Okay. The first kind of fact we call point of view dependent facts, and the second is point of view independent facts. Now, point of view dependent facts. What are these point of view dependent facts? Point of view dependent facts are what we call subjective facts or phenomenological facts. Now, the peculiarity is that, as we have already told, they embody a particular point of view. So, all the experiences which belong to the subjective or phenomenological facts embody a particular point of view. Now, the examples of these kinds of facts are facts about what it is like to be a bat, or a human, or a Martian, etc. And each of the facts is accessible only from the concerned point of view. Now, what about point of view independent facts? They are the objective facts par excellence. This category of facts can be observed and understood from many different points of view. For example, physical operation of an organism belongs to this category of facts, and the physical operation of an organism can be understood from different points of view. It could be understood by the humans, certainly, and also it can be understood, we assume that it can be understood by Martians if they are as intelligent as humans, or even bats if they are intelligent enough. Okay, so objective facts could all be equally accessed and studied by different organisms from their point of view. And he says there are no imaginative obstacles to acquiring knowledge about human physiology by human scientists, intelligent bats, or intelligent Martians. Now, objective facts, that is a importance of objective facts, that objective facts can be accessed by different organisms. So humans has a certain sort of phenomenal experiences connected to the perception of rainbow, lightning, etc., etc. So we know what it is like to see a rainbow, or what it is like to see lightning, etc., etc. And this way of experiencing could be quite peculiar to humans. Now consider Martian. Martian also might know what it is like to be, the physical facts associated with it. But Martian may not know what it is like for humans to perceive a rainbow, because he lacks the human concept of rainbow. So he doesn't have the human concept of rainbow. Therefore, he is not in a position to know what it is like to see a rainbow from human point of view. The things in the natural world have an objective nature and existence independent of the point of view from which they are accessed. So human could apprehend the objective physical nature of these things. So they are, one is certain experiences are dependent upon on our point of view, but the physical facts are independent of it. But from our point of view, we can access them. So human could apprehend the objective physical nature of these facts. Now, Martian also can apprehend the objective nature. So that is one thing. See, the objective nature of the facts could be understood from different points of view. Martian could comprehend the objective nature of things external to the point of view using Martian point of view. So, from different point of view, you can approach the objective nature of things because those things are outside the concerned point of view. But what is dependent upon the point of view cannot be understood from another point of view. Now, this is because he says, although concepts themselves are connected with a particular point of view, and a particular visual phenomenology, the things apprehended from the point of view are not. They are observable from the point of view, but external to it. So these things are external to the point of view. Hence, they can be comprehended from other points of view also. Now, the so we cannot uh, adopt the other points of view, say the point of view of a bat or a Martian. Similarly, a bat or a Martian also cannot adopt our point of view. Now, Nagel considers three ways human might be thought of adopting another point of view. First way of adopting another point of view would be imagining, say, let us consider bats. And if we are considering bats, we can imagine ourselves to be bats. That is one way. Or we can systematically change our fundamental nature to become a bat. That is another way of changing our point, adopting bat's point of view. And the third way is to extrapolate from our own case. And what Nagel wants to say is that according to none of these methods would help us adopt bat's point of view. Now let us consider imagination. What happens with imagination? We can imagine ourselves to be bats, but such imagination, he says, would not reveal what it is like to be a bat, but only tell us what it would be like, what it would be for us to behave like bats behave. Okay, in an act of imagination, we can imagine one of the following. So, but we may think what bats behave like. Bats have got certain kind of, webbing on their hands, and they are flying. So we can ourselves imagine ourselves as flying with the kinds of webbings that bats have, and we know that bats hang, upside down on attic by their legs. We can imagine doing so and so on. And also we can think about bats sonars. Bats will be emitting certain kind of sound waves, and on the basis of the reflections which they receive, they also determine the distance, physical surroundings, other physical aspects, etc., etc. So we can imagine that we are doing this. But in an act of imagination, we imagine one of the following things. What imagination consists in? In imagination, we either add to our present set of experiences. So we try to add certain things to our present set of experiences, or we remove certain segments from our experiences, or we combine, or it must be a combination of addition, subtractions, modification of the set of experiences that we have. That is what imagination is. So none of these help us imagine what it is like to be a bat, because we are limited by our own, by the resources of our mind. Whatever we are doing, what we will be doing, we will be, imagining ourselves, uh, how we ourselves would be behaving like bats behave, but that does not give us what it is like for bat to be what it is like to be bat. And the second way of adopting bat's point of view would be changing the fundamental structure. Now, my experiences could be similar to those of bats only if my fundamental structure is similar to that of bats. Now, we can think of a scenario in which I find myself metamorphed into a bat. That means slowly I am changing, maybe part by part, my basic nature, my fundamental physical nature, and then I am transformed into a bat. But nothing in my present constitutions enables me to imagine what the experiences of such a future stage of mind would be. So let us say ultimately I'm converted into a bat, but what would be that experiences right now I cannot imagine. So evidence should come from bats experiences because only bats can have bats experiences. Even if I am metaformed, converted into or transformed into a bat, that would only be bats experiences, not my experiences. So our experiences will not reveal to us what it would be like to be a bat. Now, the third possibility that Nagel discusses is extrapolation from our own case. So now he says this extrapolation cannot be from our own case to bats, cannot be completed in principles. Because whenever we try to establish from our own experiences what it is like to be a bat, we would be this extrapolation end up with a schematic conception of what it is like to be a bat, what it is like to be. Now we may ascribe here what is happening. We are ascribing certain general types of experience to bats. So like such as pain, fear, anger, lust, etc., etc. On the basis of the animal's behavior and its structure. Okay, that is what we do in an extrapolation. But as bats experiences have a specific subjective character, which we cannot conceive by employing this general experience type. So this general experience types does not capture what is peculiar or specific to bats experiences. So that is why by extrapolation we cannot have bats experiences. Now another reason why extrapolation from our own case to the inner life of bats does not work. If you try to simulate the experience of the bats, it can only be based on the material provided by our own experience. So if you have to imagine bats experiences, then what happens? We have to depend upon our own experiences only. But experiences, our experiences are radically different from the experience of a bat and are not comparable. So there is no way we can extrapolate to bats' inner life based upon our own experience. Now let us see what Nagel is trying to do. His goal is not to establish the skeptical conclusion that we cannot know what it is like to be a bat. Of course, it has got certain kind of implications of that kind, but that is not his the emphasis. One thing is that he wants to show that there are humanly accessible subjective facts. And the second thing is that he wants also to show that the importance of point of view. That means certain facts, subjective facts, are dependent upon a certain point of view. And if you are removing the subjective point of view, then there is nothing left there. So these are not arguments from privacy, that is, from the fact that experiences are private and accessible only to their owner. This is not, in a certain sense, strictly speaking, he is not speaking about the problem of the other mind, uh, because Nagel grants that experiences belonging to an individual can, in principle, be known by individuals from the same species. So, other person's human, another human being's experiences, it is in principle possible for me to know this. He believes that, and how it is known through analogical reasoning, imaginative reconstruction, or extrapolation. So, we can know the other person's experiences through some sort of an imaginative reconstruction or extrapolation. The only thing is that in our own case, we have got a complete knowledge of what it is like to have those experiences, but in the other's case, this extrapolation give only a partial understanding of what it is like to be. Now, the question now about the phenomenological facts. Are they subjective or objective? Phenomenological facts are not subjective in the sense of being private. So if you understand by subjectivity here being private, then it is not subjective in the sense of being private, accessible only to the owner, ineffable and non-shareable. That is a way that very often when we are going to speak about the subjective experiences we speak of, but he says Nagel is of the view they are not subjective in the sense. There is, he says, a sense in which phenomenological facts are perfectly objective. And what is a sense in which it is perfectly objective? It is objective in the sense that one can know and speak of the quality of others' experience. So I can know of others' experience and also speak of others' experience. So therefore, from that point of view, we can take a third person point of view with regard to the experiences of other people. However, they are subjective. In what sense they are subjective? They are subjective. This is a sense in which Nagel is speaking about the subjective, in the sense that even this objective ascription of experience is possible only for someone sufficiently similar to be able to adopt his point of view. So the other person's point of view, if other person is a human being, now of course we can take a human point of view and we are sufficiently similar to that person's, and therefore we can take a human point of view and know what the other person's experiences are. From that point of view, it is objective. So in that point of view, it is subjective, but in the sense that we can speak about it, it is objective. So there are two senses, quite related. One is he is ruling out the possibility that our experiences are subjective in the sense of being private, but it is subjective in the sense it is dependent upon a point of view, but it is objective in the sense that other people can speak of, access and speak of. From that point of view, it is objective. So here what we find is that the subjectivity and objectivity are not radically different when we are going to speak about the experiences. Nagel is committed to an appearance reality distinction in the case of physical phenomena, but uh, see, for example, consider the phenomenon of lightning. It has got certain objective character that is not exhausted by its visual appearance, because even creatures with no vision can study the objective character of light. So Nagel says it has this physical phenomenon, namely lightning, has more objective character than is revealed in the visual appearance. Now, in our inquiry into the physical phenomenon, what we do, we move from subjective to more objective characterization. So this is what, according to him, that happens in physics. Let us say we have got lightning, we are probe more into it from an objective point of view and then try to give an objective characterization of the physical phenomena independent of the phenomenal concepts about the phenomena that we have. So according to Nagel, it is more accurate to characterize objectivity. So what is objectivity for him? Objectivity, he says, is a direction in which our understanding can travel from a particular type of point of view. So it is basically broadening of this particular type of point of view, and so therefore it is moving towards more and more, uh, uh, you know, of what we call objectivity. But objectivity he is not committed to the view that objectivity is an end point. It may be a never expanding view. So he is not committed to whether there is an end point of view or not. This shows that for Nagel, there is no radical distinction between subjective and objective. They differ only in degree. Now, now can we speak about the objective character of an experience per se? Given that subjective experiences are real, we can ask what the objective character of experience is. An experience does not have an objective character apart from the particular point of view from which its subject apprehends it. So if at all it has got an objective experience, it can be accessed only from that point of view. But apart from that point of view, it does not have any objective nature. For example, if one removes the point of view of bat from what it is like to be a bat, nothing is left in what it is like to be a bat. So, in addition to its subjective character, the experience does not have an objective character which can be apprehended from many different points of view. So, according to him, the objective character is something which can, in principle, be apprehended from many different points of view. So, therefore, my experiences, if I'm going to speak about, or Bat's experience, emotions cannot experience because, independent of my point of view, human point of view, emotions cannot know, emotion uh, cannot access that point of view or the experiences that is dependent upon that point of view. So now Nagel wants to stress that in the case of subjective experience, there is no appearance reality distinction. And maybe we can also say subjectivity and objectivity are inseparable in the case of subjective experiences. And it makes no sense to ask what my experiences are really like as opposed to how they appear to me. So, as far as physical phenomena is concerned, there is an appearance reality distinction. But in the case of the subjective experiences, what appears is real. If at all subjective experiences have an intrinsic objective character, it consists in their being accessed from the point of view in question. Now, so therefore, in the case of subjective experiences, the idea of moving from appearance to reality seems to make no sense. As a result, there can be an objective understanding of experience. There cannot be an objective understanding of experience by abandoning the phenomenal subjective point of view. If the subjective point of view is deducted from the experience, then nothing objective remains. Therefore, the subjective experiences do not have an objective nature which can be accessed from different points of view. So now with this, he is trying to see what are the implications of this kind of a view about consciousness and subjective experiences to uh, psychophysical reduction. Now, so the question therefore here is, can mental be or can consciousness be reduced to the physical? Now, he says objective facts about human neurobiology will not reveal what it is like to be a human. So, unless, of course, the objective point of view itself incorporates the typically human point of view. Now, subjective experiences are accessible only from one point of view, and an objective physical account will abandon that point of view in question. So, whenever we are moving to the more objective, when our understanding is moving towards more and more accurate view or objective view, then we are leaving aside the subjective point of view. So, therefore, subjective facts, that is, point of view dependent facts, cannot be reduced to physical facts which are point of view independent. So, reduction in science, he says, moves in the direction of greater objectivity, ultimately providing us with an accurate view of the real nature of things. This accurate view can be obtained only if our view of things is independent of the species specific point of view. So, only if we are adopting that kind of an understanding where subjectivity is completely eliminated, only then we get objectivity in the proper sense. Now, when we are looking at a reduction in science, what happens is we purge objective nature of things from the subjective elements. Whatever subjective elements are removed, and as a result of which we get the objective nature. For example, he is speaking about reducing a sound wave to the reduction of sound. When we are reducing sound wave to a wave phenomenon in air, we leave behind human or animal auditory point of view. So what it is like to hear, or what it is like that the sound, what it is like to hear that sound, that is left behind, and then it is being reduced to mere wave in the air. Thus, a human or animal auditory point of view remains non-reduced. In a certain sense, he says it is being left aside when we are going to do this reduction. Members of a different species refer to a common reality, and their more particular viewpoints are not part of that common reality they both apprehend. So, if we hear sound and bats hear sound, both of them apprehend this common reality. But what it is like hearing a sound would be different for bats as well as for humans. But the objective characteristics can be accessed by both the species. So, so eliminating the subjective point of view does not work if the things to be studied are subjective in nature. So here, when it comes to consciousness or the subjective experiences, the phenomenon to be studied is the consciousness itself, and and it is dependent upon a point of view. And if that point of view is eliminated, then this point of view cannot be eliminated. If it is eliminated, then that phenomenon is not there. If mental processes are indeed physical, then there is something it is like intrinsically to undergo those physical processes. And Nagel says, what it is for such a thing to be the case remains a mystery. So the conclusion of his argument is that reduction is possible only in the case of phenomena where things can be approached or referred to from multiple points of view. And when we are doing that, we leave aside this the point of view that is specific uh, to that phenomenon from that angle. Reduction is not possible in the case of things that can be referred to or accessed only from the phenomenal point of view. So that is all what I want to speak of. So thank you for listening.
Thank you very much.
So shall
Uh,
I stop sharing this?
yes, you can. Thank you very much, Professor Tommy, for drawing our attention to one of the most talked about important papers of of philosophy of mind. That I still remember when in the 80s when his book on a view from nowhere
No,
came out.
yeah,
Yeah, it was a kind of it really almost all the philosophers in North America started talking about the book. So thank you very much. This is a very important paper by Tom Nagel. So the lecture is now open for discussions, comments, or clarifications. So please come forward, dear participants.
Good afternoon, sir.
good afternoon. Good afternoon.
Sir, can we argue in this way from the point of view of reductive physicalism that
Yeah,
as Professor Nagel is choosing a particular species of bat, not
yeah.
wasps or others more fundamental, more preliminary animal species like bacteria, protozoa, more fundamental species.
Okay, okay,
So
okay.
in one way, he is actually relying on the cognitive architecture of that species, that
Yeah, right.
that the cognitive architecture has to be some complex, has to
Yeah, yeah,
attain
yeah,
some complexities in order to express consciousness. So
yeah, yeah.
in this way, can we say that in some point, in this way, can we argue that actually he is in one way supporting reductive physicalism or mind brain identity theory?
In a certain sense, you are right. He is not speaking about reductionism per se, but he say somehow he believes the consciousness is somewhere. There is a physical basis for that, because in as we go along with this paper, what we find is that there is one line where he's saying whether a simple organism have consciousness or not, we cannot say because we do not have any evidence. So
Yes, yes.
clearly, he is speaking here about the structure of the organism, complexity of the organism, and their behavior. So it is on the basis of the complexity of the behavior and the structure of the organism only we attribute consciousness to other organism. That is why I said and certainly when we are going to speak about the complexity of organisms, it is all about the physical complexity that we are speaking of.
Yes.
So that physical base is not being rejected.
Yes. Thank you, sir. And another question is on the difference between type token subjectivity, like subjectivity from within a species-specific
Species.
subjectivity and individual-specific subjectivity.
Yeah,
Like
yeah, yeah,
within human species, can
yeah.
I possibly take the place from the subjective point of view, take the place of another human being? Can I guess from another human being's point of view that what it is like to be that human being?
He says it is possible.
Okay.
But it is that is why he is speaking that it is some kind of an extrapolation or imagination or there's some kind of an logical reasoning, whatever it is. He says that we can know what it is like to have those kinds of experiences or the quality of others' experiences. So that is why he is not. He is insisting on this, that he is not here raising a skeptical argument. Okay, he is not raising the problem of other mind. It is possible for a human being to know the experiences of another human beings because he is telling that a human being is similar to other human beings. The conceptual system we have, the conceptual system is something that we all share. The experiences surrounding is something we all share. And the human structure and physiology is similar. So therefore, he would say that we can know the other beings' experiences. But when we are contrasting it with the bat, he says he is taking a bat's case because bats are sufficiently different from us in many ways.
Yes.
Okay, so that is why he says we cannot know that kind of an experience.
Yes. And sir, can we compare the concept of conceptual system in a human being with its cognitive architecture? Are they identical?
Uh,
The conceptual system of a human being and the cognitive architecture of a human being, are these two terms
how,
identical?
how do you differentiate between this cognitive system and the conceptual architecture?
And even from the if there is some phenomenological content,
Yeah,
epiphenomenal, if the question of epiphenomenal qualia comes here, that
yeah, yeah, yeah,
being and human, there is something extra which cannot be reduced to the soft problems of consciousness.
yeah, 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 yeah.
So if that extra thing is there, that cannot be reduced in the terms of physical sciences.
Yes.
So
That's the point that he's making, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
And then another question is, though it's not related to directly to your lecture, that is based on this type token subjectivity, species-specific
Yeah.
subjectivity, and individual-specific subjectivity. Is there
Yeah.
any real distinction in contemporary phenomenological literature? I mean, species-specific phenomenal literature and individual-specific phenomenal literature. Is
Uh,
is there any
I,
kind of...
I'm not sure. I think mostly when we are these days, I have a feeling that we have moved away from Nagel very often because sometimes the discussion is always from the point of view of individual subject
Yes.
when we are going to speak about.
Yes.
I think that was not the point that he was emphasizing on.
Yes. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much, sir.
Okay,
Sir.
thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, any other questions or clarifications? Because we have some time, we are around 15 minutes. So you are most welcome to come up with any questions or clarifications that you would like to have from Professor Tomy. Well, I guess since there is no other question, Professor Tomy, then let me again, express my sincere thanks to you. In spite of a very busy schedule, you have agreed, to be with us this morning, and for such a nice, lucid, presentation of Tom Nagel's view. So, thank you very much, Professor Tomy.
So thank you very much. Thank you for
Thank
inviting
Okay.
me, and thank for all of you for giving a patient hearing.
Okay.
Right.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
very much. Yeah.
Thank you.